Oh yes, strap yourselves in folks, we've got a doozy, opening up with a nice Pistolier volley. This one sent in by Get Up Mule, playing the Beastmen obviously up against the Empire. Before we get too much into the action, let's go over the builds. We've got 5 Chaos Poison Warhounds up front, Centaurs with great weapons, bunch of Spearmen, Ungor with shields, a couple of Gore Herds with shields as well, Razor Gore Herds, Gorbel, we've got Lore of Wild Caster, and Morgar the Shadow Gave leading the way. Of course, Boris and Amber Gryphon making up the double Gryphon, obviously. We've also got a bunch of Pistoliers, some Empire Knights, whole mess of state troops, a couple of grenade launchers as well. Yeah, so let's get straight to it. You can see the Knights already charging in the front line, gonna get countercharged here by some Centaurs with great weapons. The Spearmen herd also trade very cost effectively here, but Boris and the Gryphon do drop for a quick Terror Charge. That ability on Boris, you know, that the debuff he does have, no, he does not in fact have the debuffs. Personally, I do like to bring them against the Beastmen because one of them is leadership conditional, and you can pretty consistently get Beastmen below 50% leadership with the terror-causing Gryphon, but a nice initial engagement for the Beastmen. They're going to very much destroy these Razor Gore herds, and the Centaurs with great weapons just doing a ton of damage, getting a quick terror out, but a nice Traderkin it looks like. Yep, great Traderkin there, going to do some great AoE damage to all those units. Yeah, it's alright. Also slows them down a little bit as well, which is nice for the Griffins. Going to see a Manticore summon from the Empire, Amber Gryphon popping his first summon. And the Empire, yeah, just cleaning up here in the center. Grenade launchers and Pistoliers definitely making their presence felt against this light infantry here, but the flank is being turned. Spearman herd and Centaurs with great weapons kind of pushing some units back here. The Hounds pulling Boris and the Amber Wizard away from the front line so that hopefully the Beastmen can start to come in and punch back a little bit. We've got the one spawn summon here, which is going to be pretty important, potentially. Let's see, they're just fighting the spears for the time being, but, you know, with this situation like this in the Beastman's position, the spawn, you almost want to hold on to them just for when the Griffins land if they try and goon, but I don't know, this may have been the one that just pops, you know, that you can't control. I don't actually 100% know, wasn't paying full attention, but Gorbel gonna get dropped here. Boris comes in, the pigs are gonna try and support, but just with the Pistoliers and the grenade launchers, Boris just does a number on poor Gorbel here. Gorbel struggling to get attacks in return, does get a little bit of damage there, but the Amber Gryphon also dropping down now. This is just bad day for Gorbel. All the grenade launchers also coming in, just wrecking those pigs behind. But Centaurs the Gryphon still alive out here. We've got the Spearman herd also contesting. Ungor's still fighting in the center, so it's not looking too hopeless for the Beastmen, but considering they start out on the head on the balance of power, not looking great for them so far. But looks like some Manticore does go down. That'll equalize things a little bit. Gorbel just getting absolutely dumped on. A little bit sad day for Gorbel, but he'll be fine, I'm sure. Pistoliers used up quite a bit of their ammunition already. There are still these Centaurs with great weapons online, so that is a potential danger. Yeah, Ungor Spearman, also very good. Probably the best low-tier spear in the game, but that's a discussion for another day. Morgar, of course, still completely healthy. The Caster still alive as well, pretty important. That Viletide and Traderkin both pretty nice spells. Viletide in particular will help thin out some of this Empire infantry, so not really too much to worry about there from like the swordsmen and so on. Morgar can also tank them out just fine. So really it comes down to like, can the two Gryphon characters eventually finish off Morgar once the rest of the Beastman army is gone. Preferably, you do want to get some quick terror routes, and that's what Boris does here. Try and bail out these Empire Knights, who definitely are taking a beating. That enables the grenade launchers to fire in. Boris, nice charge. They get quickly terrified away, and the Empire Knights are saved. Just like that. Amber Wizard also moving back in. The thing to note, though, Amber Wizard, very squishy overall. I mean, for a monster to have, like, barely over 3,000 HP base, really not incredible. So it's a very, very squishy monster. Even like Boris, you know, like 4,000 HP on a Lord level. Griffins are somewhat squishy in terms of their HP pool. I mean, obviously, Boris makes that up with his massive 8 heals per second on his Midland Rune Fang. But he's still, you know, not that much total HP overall, and melee defense, you know, is okay. Boris has got 40 melee defense. The Amber Wizard, though, only 50 armor and 30 melee defense means he is pretty squishy. I mean, granted, the weapon strength and charge bonus for a kind of quote-unquote monster, if you were to discount all the spells, is still pretty solid, and it's a Gryphon, so, you know, very fast as well. Pretty decent animations. Boris is going to drop down here and try and take advantage of those up against these pigs, but he's in a potentially dangerous situation. I mean, depends on how many units the Beastmen want to rush in here, but right now it looks like chasing off these Pistoliers and these tattered state troops, very good idea to try and finish them off. We've got more grenade launchers coming back over here, but they are very much isolated. Don't really have any units, excuse me, to try and fall back on for support. So Empire starting to get a little bit thin, honestly. Things were looking good for them at various points, but now Beastmen definitely staging a comeback. Let's see how they can prevail. Empire kind of consolidating their forces here. Pistoliers out of ammo can kind of screen for the Outriders now. Let them use up the last of their grenades. But this other unit of grenade launchers is going to get caught out in the periphery by the Poison Warhounds. That's a really nice high-value get. Very important unit to get rid of. Good job by Get a Mule there. Let's see if Kafka can hold him off. The double Gryphons are definitely very, very dangerous for this Beastman army. All of these very tattered units are going to want to just get terror routed immediately upon contact. Exactly like that. But it looks like, ooh, actually a Cygor? Nope. No, yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he brought the Cygor summon. Late game Manticore summon from the Empire, was kind of saving that one in his back pocket to try and finish this thing off. Now 3 big terror single entities. Not big, but you know what I mean. Terror-causing single entities to deal with for the Beastmen's not great. The Manticore's immediately going to go after the caster here, it looks like. But Beastmen do have some forces kind of rallying in the vicinity. There's also some Empire State Troop Spears coming back. If Morgar comes back as well, I mean, Morgar plus the Shaman could probably actually beat the Manticore. Meanwhile, though, 2 Gryphons just running around, terrifying away. Again, these very tattered Beastman units, just terrible leadership, so they are going to want to run away immediately. The caster does get pretty much finished off, so is it Morgar versus the world? Not quite. He's still got some Centaurs with Grey Weapons, and actually some full health Hounds as well over there, and some pretty healthy ones over there. So the late game Hound play could be pretty key if Get a Mule can notice them and bring them back in time, but let's see if he does. As it stands right now, Empire definitely in a very commanding position. I mean, of course, once the Manticore goes, balance of power will equalize somewhat, but even still, you know, having both of these characters so healthy still into the late game, that definitely weighs heavily on the minds of the GOAT people. So, interesting stuff. Does look like the Hounds are on their way back over there and over here, so yeah, might be able to bail out those Centaurs with Great Weapons. It does look like they do come back from route, so nicely done. Amber Wizard could throw a Flock of Doom out there in the distance. Meanwhile, here in the center, Boris charges the Centaurs. Let's see, will Morgar countercharge him on the ground? This is a very ideal situation for Morgar. He doesn't have to take the charge. He can get in and poison Boris, get a few hits on him. You know, Boris and Morgar have had a long, tumultuous relationship, and definitely at times playing, you know, with Boris myself, especially with these double Gryphon builds. I'm definitely a big fan of them. Like, sometimes Morgar would win even before the mass changes, but now, definitely with the mass changes, you have to cycle charge him. The poison, and I mean, he's got decent enough weapon strength and stats that, like, that Boris will actually not beat him in melee, probably, in a sustained fight. But obviously, Gryphon's very high charge, you want to take advantage of that, so, yeah, Boris, 70 charge on him. Not as much as Carl's, say, 90, but another Flock of Doom here to try and deal with those best score as they pretty much finish off those Outriders, yep. So the Beastmen just scraping and clawing, shattering units wherever they can. We're going to fast forward a little bit through this late game as they do so. The Empire also tries to do the same, to shatter any weakened units, present themselves. Like, you know, it's interesting, because you would think, I'll just charge in this Ungor Spearman herd and break them quickly, and I will say the Hounds are a little bit out of position. You maybe could do that and then potentially get a couple of good charges on Morgar as well, but you do have to be careful of the range of the Centaurs with Grey Weapons there. You eventually actually go after the Hounds here, which is an interesting play. They do manage to get the terror route. Let's keep things going. Yeah, will these spears be able to do anything is the question. The Empire Spearmen forming a line. Boris has got to be careful. Yep, he does manage to actually truly rout those hounds, so that counts for 2 routes, I believe, but I mean, the spearmen here are definitely going to get swarmed. It's a question of, will the Gryphons be in a position in time to finish things off? Definitely not looking great. If both the Gryphons team up on Morgur, he will get canned. I mean, he can sometimes beat Boris one-on-one. Not always, but he will sometimes beat Boris one-on-one in the sustained combat. But a 2v1 is definitely going to swing things against him, especially if they're both getting charges on him, which it looks like did not really, but the doggos are still around. Even if their leadership's not great, they can at least come in and saturate this fight and try to, you know, help out, at least somewhat. And it looks like there is the spawn summon held. Okay, so the one we saw earlier was indeed probably just like a swordsman or something turning into spawn. And the late game spawn summon from the back pocket from Morgur all of a sudden turns things around heavily. The Amber Wizard starts to take a ton of damage. The hounds do get terrified away, but of course, Chaos Spawn are unbreakable. They've also got poison, as does Morgur. 130 weapon strength. They actually just beat down the Amber Wizard very, very quickly. You know, doggos and Morgur, of course, contributing to that. And all of a sudden, things are looking very much winnable for the Beastmen. Very quick turnaround there. You can see the Amber Wizard just struggling to get through these thick spawn bodies. And he does manage to eventually do so, but probably not going to come back from rout. Boris at this point is quickly approaching his healing cap. His leadership is going low, and look at that, just like that, Beastmen pull it back. What? I said Beastmen pull it back. There we go, Boris. And pull out the win there. What a wild finish. Man, just the back-breaking late-game spawn summon, and credit to Get Up Mule's patience there, just holding that the entire time, waiting for the right opportunity to use it, exactly as I mentioned earlier. You know, you kind of want to use it to block in the Gryphons when they come to fight Morgur, and they honestly didn't do that until the late game, which is definitely the right call from Kafka, but then, you know, the ability to have that and the other supporting units as well, but definitely that late-game spawn summon, just absolutely back-breaking, so big thanks to Get a Meal for sending that one in. Definitely a fun one. Morgur does a great job between those 2 spawn summons, I'm sure, and his own innate value. Elnagor Spearman Herd generally do their job of being meat shields. Gore Herds are also kind of meat shields, sadly, but that's okay. They're a little bit better than Ungors. Elnagors with Coryphons actually get some pretty solid damage. Love them in this matchup. They're definitely a staple against the Empire. It's one of those kind of specific matchups where a unit shines because Empire Knights rely mostly on their armor. They don't actually have that greatest stats. These guys with their great armor-piercing damage can trade very well into them without taking as much damage from, as, say, like, Knights of the Realm, for example, right? Hounds also, great job chasing units off with them. Got some excellent value there. The Pigs had a little bit of a harder time, but that's okay. Yeah, Empire Knights also had a bit of a rough time. Kind of mobile blocking detachments. They don't actually do all that much damage these days, depending on your opponent's build as well, but you definitely want to have them here. I think from Kafka's perspective, the only thing I'd change about this build is probably to drop 1 swordsman to bring a captain. Just, you know, basically turn the swordsman into a single entity because the captain has more melee defense and armor. Yeah, he's got less HP overall, but he is tankier in a lot of senses, and in that late game character blob, could have potentially contributed, you know, theoretically, if he's still alive, but a lot of ifs there. But just for me personally, I like to fill all my hero slots with Empire. Anyway, yeah, that's it for today. No unit comparisons, no nothing. Just a straight-up awesome battle wanted to share with you guys, so big thanks again. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.